I got Jordan Green with me today. I've been so excited all week about doing this, actually for 2 weeks, whenever we decided we were going to do this. Jordan is the pastor down at Pursuit. I'm going to tell you some stuff about him that he won't tell you about himself because it's just not in his nature to do so. But he's a pastor, and what I think is definitely the fastest growing church in our county and probably our region and maybe even the state. And I just really appreciate his heart and what he stands for. And I guess what I really respect, I don't know, I just thought of this morning about you and I, and we became friends about 7 or 8 years ago.
Long time.
His daughter, my daughter was in his wife's class at school, and she said, my teacher just moved here, and her husband's a preacher, and so I looked up his number and called him, and we went to lunch one day, and we've been friends ever since, and kind of a guy I really admire, and probably one of my closest go-to guys in ministry right now. I call him or text back and forth probably about every week.
Ditto.
And so I really appreciate him. But in the middle of his growth, what I really admire and respect most of all is a lot of churches, when they start growing, they water down their message because they want to make sure everybody stays unoffended. I just appreciate that you just stay in that word, man, and just like whatever God says, you say it. And that's something I admire a lot about you. So anyway, I appreciate you being here. And
I'm pumped to be here.
yeah, so we're going to take off right into this. We've been planning to do something like this. I went with him to do a podcast a couple months ago, and I've been wanting to get him back up here with us to do something ever since. And so we're going to talk today about maybe the something that's on everybody's heart and mind right now, the current situation of the church. And I'm just going to throw some questions out there and let Jordan go, and then I'll feed off of whatever he says in the middle of this. So anyway, so I'm gonna throw him some really. I told him I'm gonna throw him some slow pitch softball today because I think this is something that's on our heart, both our hearts. You know, with the current situation where we're doing a bunch of live broadcasts and not getting to be with our church people, and this little saying somebody came up with, and I copied it about a month ago. The church has left the building. Yeah. You know, the church really has left the building. And so what I wanted to talk to you about today was get your perspective on how has this season changed the church, you think?
The Big C Church. So I think, this is a conversation we've been having a bunch inside, like just with our staff and team and with a lot of other people. And I think my first answer would be, might sound a little judgmental towards certain churches, and I don't mean it to be, but it is the truth. So right. I think that there are a lot of churches, a significant amount of churches actually, that have just decided for whatever reason that, you know, technology is kind of like a bad thing and that we're not moving in that direction and we're not going to go this way. And that I've heard people say all the time, like, all we need is the Bible. And I'm like, I super believe that, you know, but you still use a microphone, right? Yeah. You still use a microphone, so that's electricity, so you need a little bit more. And I think that because of that, there's so many churches that are losing their influence in the community. They're losing their influence to the younger generation. And one positive thing that the corona and the quarantine has forced people to do is move into a direction that they would not have ever probably gone. And they may not realize it or admit it, but it may have just saved the life of their church. Yeah. And so I think that's been a huge thing, a positive thing. And I think that it's forced churches that's been just kind of dabbling in it to go all the way in. And I think that it's even forced us. Yeah. I think it's even forced us to go to like a different level. And like we got 3 years better in 3 weeks because we just had to kind of go all in. So there's been a lot of negativity, to the whole worldwide pandemic. But for the church, I think that to be honest, I think there's probably more positives than negatives. Yeah, I agree. As hard as that is to say on some level.
I agree. I think that with us, it exposed our weaknesses immediately.
I agree.
I mean, like within the first 2 or 3 days, our weaknesses in ministry, the people even here that weren't prepared to reach the masses, and we had to grow through that 3-year thing in about 3 weeks as well. And but I really think it's made us better communicators as a church. I remember that first week. I think we found out on like a Wednesday or something that we were going to we couldn't get together Sunday. Yeah. And we made that decision, like you guys did, pretty quickly, and said we got to make a plan. So the next night we were in here practicing.
That's exactly how we did it.
And So Sunday morning we were in here doing a live feed, which makes me nervous the thought of that anyway. But it was we just had to learn quickly, and thank God our people have like responded to that, and a lot of people that weren't our people have responded to that too. So, but I really appreciate, because we took some of our lead from you. We've been in communication with them a lot, and we saw some things they were doing that was working, and I called Jordan and said, "Hey, can we steal some stuff from y'all?" And he said, "Go for it."
Because we've stolen it all from other people.
They stole it from somebody else,
Yeah.
so we started doing some of this stuff in the same way. Next question: what have you seen in the body that you're most proud of in this season?
So that's an easy question. I almost want to hop back in between the first question and this question, because you said something that kind of hit me, kind of hard. You said about the people responding to it. And I think that will lead into the answer to the second question as well.
Right.
I think that one thing, again, and this is just kind of where I'm at right now, so
Right.
I'm going to keep saying stuff similar to this.
Yeah.
But I do think there was so much fear of change, and,
Yeah.
and there's so many other churches and especially the older congregations, just any kind of change is negativity, and it'll never be the same. I'll never be able to watch somebody on a screen. I'll never be able to do that. And my argument has always been, you watch TV more than you do anything else in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Or your phone.
Or your
Maybe.
phone.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
a fact.
Yeah.
So like you can super feel emotion and get stuff and learn. And I think that we've been forced to do that, and the response has been kind of crazy powerful. I also think, to what you were saying, I think people are hungry right now.
Yeah.
And so a combination of the first and your second question, I think one of the best things I've seen in the body personally, and then one of the things that I think the way it's affected the church is it's created a deep-seated hunger, because when things are amazing, people are less hungry for God, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And when things get taken away, like the fear, the unknown, the quarantine, the economy crashing, people losing their jobs, all these horrible things, it takes away the things that we put our fleshly dependence on. And when we remove those things, and the surety of life goes away, and the confidence, and even government and economy and all that stuff kind of goes away, it leaves us without any delusion, and we become hungry and more dependent on God. And
Amen.
I think that's why people
good.
have been responding to the way they're responding. And I think so. I think that's a powerful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then I think just as the body in general, I think the way that everybody's come together, that's been my favorite thing through this whole process, to see all the different churches, Christians in general, even people that aren't necessarily believers, but seeing the church come together. Like, there was a couple of weeks there where you guys, us, 2 or 3 other churches, I think the Cove, businesses, everybody was coming together. They saw this need, and they were all working together. And we've gotten so much feedback from non-believers that were like, that attracted them so much to the church. Yeah. And I don't mean pursuit. I mean like the Big C Church, that attracted them so much that they wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so they were giving and
sure.
donating food. And so I think as a whole, just seeing the way that all of the churches just immediately, just like you guys did, just there is a need, let's get involved, let's fix this thing.
Right.
And
That's
like,
good.
that was an amazing thing for me. It's kind of set a fire in my heart a little bit for the power of what local, I hate the word missions. I hate anything that sounds like the word we use all the time, but like just taking care of people like in our
Right.
backyard, and the amount
It's
of
love is
needs.
all it is,
Yeah.
really, basically.
And like that's been something that has just been amazing. So
I think it gave us a chance to show who we really were to some degree. I think if I weren't, I grew up in church. My dad was a preacher. You grew up in church for most of your life, maybe not all of it, but I know a little bit of your story. But I think if I were somebody on the outside looking toward the church, sometimes I don't know if I would fit, and I think this raw love that happened, just real meeting people's needs. Because it took 3 weeks for all of our idols to crash.
Yeah.
Like if you were hoping in your bank account, well, that's going down the drain because
That's
your
right.
401k died. If your idol was sports, they stopped.
Yeah.
If your idol was church, you couldn't go to the building, and it made us come to grips with who we really were quickly. Mm-hmm. And I saw people like you, man. We've had people that we've never even met before, you know, sending us money to buy food, you know, we you know, and I just thought that was such an awesome thing, you know, to get to love people in that kind of with that kind of pure love, and let them see the church really being the church, maybe for the first time in a long time.
I think for a lot of people, I think that was something I heard one of our people said, that they literally, people are seeing the church be what Jesus asked us to be for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
And
because religion don't really work when, you know, what stressful situations, I say this all the time with families that are going through heartache. I think people, Christians, and maybe people in general, when they go through a traumatic moment, they either run to God or from Him. And I saw a lot of people in the body of Christ, and I don't want fear to be that motivating factor, but I think just the anxiety of the unsureness of the moment buckled us into this place where we had to really focus in on. And when we come back, we're going to, and I know that's probably one of my different questions later, but when we come back together as the body, we're going to be different than we were when we left.
Substantially.
You know, I'm excited about the reconnection of the church, and so, but we'll get that in a little bit more in a minute. But next question I wanted to ask you is, how do you think this season changed you?
How deep you want to go? In that?
Well, I've been watching you.
Yeah.
You know, I watch a lot of their stuff, and we try to be on purpose cheerleaders for each other. We're very public in our support of one another, and other churches as well. I've watched. Let me tell you what I've seen it do in you. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Let me see if I'm getting this right.
See where that goes.
What I saw in you immediately was a return to reading the Word like it was the first time you saw it, and.
You said that better than I could have.
Okay, yeah. All right. And so I think that I saw a new passion for worship, even though I think you were a worshiper already.
Yeah.
I saw a new passion for worship, and even an emphasis for your people to turn into people of worship more. You know, it's one thing to just show up at church building 1 hour or 2 hours a week or whatever, but to live a life of worship, I think I've watched you challenge your people. So, knowing you challenge your people to do that, undoubtedly, God's doing something like that in you. You know, and I saw you go back and this passion to bring like real worship, not just fluff, to the Father, inspired me as a pastor when I watched that happening in you, because I felt some of that was happening to me. And I told you this personally. You know, some of the things you've preached have been really convicted my heart to go into a deeper place. And so I know I'm older than you, but I appreciate you leading me in this moment to some degree in what you are after, your pursuit of the Father. You know, so maybe I answered that question for you better than you could have.
No, I mean, that was awesome. That was good. I think part of the whole leading day, I think that's what, you know, the way God lays it out is that there's one at the head, and that's Jesus, and the rest of us are, you know, leading each other, you know, in different seasons and times, and learning from each other and pulling. So I think that's the way it's supposed to be. And but I think to answer that question fully, and in a real way and in an honest way, months ago now. Well, not months ago. Yeah, I guess 2 months. I just felt like the Lord. I think I texted you maybe. I wanted. I don't know if I did, but I felt like the Lord was kind of calling me away for a few days.
I remember.
Yeah, and just got along with the Lord. And I've done that several times, and sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's 5 days. But I just planned to have as much time as I needed. And I was gone for like 6 days. And while I was there, the Lord just really ripped my soul open, like in a really cool way. But He really used the book or 2 Chronicles in the life of Hezekiah, and I've really felt through those few days, I really felt like the Lord, and I don't want to get to whatever, but I felt like the Lord. Everybody else was kind of like, all this Corona thing's not going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. I knew that it was going to be a way bigger deal than it seemed, right. and I just felt that so strong in my heart from that time away, and I felt like the Lord was saying that he's going to bring them. I hate again, just like missions and outreach and revival, but I feel like he's going to bring revival in a sense. But I just really felt like it had to start with the house. If you go through and you read 2 Chronicles, I think 29:30, and it's in Kings too, 2 Kings. But the first thing Hezekiah did when he took the throne, deeply wicked and evil everywhere, he went straight to the temple, reinstituted the house of worship.
Yep.
And I just felt like the Lord just said that, like, that needs to happen now, and that if there is judgment and if there is discipline coming against anything, it's not coming against the world and it's not coming against the government, but that it would be coming against the church. Because if the church was living like the church needed to live, we wouldn't have half the issues we have in life anyway.
Yeah.
And I just felt that so strong. And so our house just kind of started a huge focus on worship, and we started having prayer nights, and we started kind of coming together. And that's what we were doing about the 20 days leading into the quarantine.
Yeah.
And through that, I just feel like the Lord has opened up my heart and my eyes to the emptiness of, and I've always hated religion. If anybody's ever paid attention to anything I've ever said or preached, it's always been a passion of mine. But that, like, he's about to restart and re-energize his church, and that's going to mean heavy hand against his house and against the leaders and the teachers and all the denominations and all these things that have put the culture and the world first and have started trying to hide Jesus and the truth under a rock. And I think that we forget that God is like a living God, and he's a big God, and he's aware of what's happening, and he doesn't remain silent. And I think just because we went through 1 or 2 generations where we haven't faced anything real, we're just so foolish by nature. Just because we haven't seen it or experienced in our lifetime, we think it never has or it never would be, and like it's a thing. God is a living, active God who brings judgment against his house and against the country and against the world, and discipline is what he's always done. He's always been like that from Genesis to Revelation. He hasn't stopped, and I think that's my opinion, is that that's what's happening right now, and I think that he's elevating the church and the true church, that remnant. I think he's elevating them to positions of influence, and that he's squashing anybody that is not willing to step out in faith and to be strong for that and come with that full love and that grace and that truth and represent that. And I think there's so many people building fans and big movements and big growth stuff, and they're trying to fill churches up and have forgotten about, like, just the true gospel and just the truth, and just to preach and be unashamed of the truth. And there's just been this overwhelming, as you said it better than I could have, just an overwhelming passion birthed in me for the truth, the word of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, true worship, and putting that out as far as we can and as powerfully as we can and as much as we can, and pouring everything into that.
And as real as we can.
And as real as we can,
That's cool, man.
And that was a long answer, but
No, that's good, man. That's a John Ford moment I feel like we're in, where he said he looks for true worshipers who worship in spirit and in truth. And I really, for a long time, was confused about what that really meant, to worship in spirit and in truth. But I think that's my revelation moment for this season, is that God's after something real in spirit and in truth. And so, man, this is cool stuff. We're gonna stop this part of this, because I know we're gonna connect this third question to another part in just a minute. But we're gonna come back in just a few minutes and finish this conversation.